The next evening found the meteor and black hole at the Federation outpost. It was a decent-sized moon orbiting a gas giant. It was a rocky and desolate moon, unfit for habitation, which made it a good spot for an outpost. Due to location, the outpost was only good as a repair and relay point, as well as observation. It was usually a quiet outpost, but today, all 3 of its larger ship bays were taken, which had never happened before. The first order of business was a meeting between all 9 of the ship heads and Mira. Because of the total darkness needed by God's Eye's nocturnal species, it was decided that they would all meet on God's Eye, as it would be the safest meeting place. Admiral Veby ordered up 4 sets of a special visor for each of them, so that they would be able to see. Raleigh would have the best vision out of the 4 of them, being nocturnal herself. But total darkness may give her difficulty too. Fennis reminded everyone to wait until they boarded God's Eye before putting the visors on, or even the dim lighting they had would be blinding. Mira realized the visors probably worked like night vision goggles. Mira and the leaders of the meteor headed over to God's Eye and met up with the leaders of Black Hole on the way. Mira had only met Sisveta of those leaders.
We'll do full introductions on board God's Eye,
Sisveta told Mira as they walked.
Most of us haven't met each other either.
They entered God's Eye and the lights were completely off. The sudden loss of sight made Mira feel disoriented immediately. Raleigh steadied her and said,
"Put the visor on."
Mira put it on, and everything was in color, but was muted. She had been expecting it to be the green tints of the night vision goggles back home, but this was much nicer. This was like walking in dim lighting. She saw in the corner of the visor that hers had been set to human, so she guessed that each visor was customized for each species' vision needs. Walking with the visor was a little trippy because the peripheral was total blackness. Near the door to the interior stood what Mira mentally referred to as a mole person. It stood on 2 legs, but its hands were long claws that looked like they were meant for digging. The pronounced nose had long whiskers and ears that reminded her a bit of a chow. It had the ability to lift and lower them as it wished. Perhaps it was to help keep the ears closed for protection. This alien skin was in shades of brown, and the face had these deep wrinkles or scale-like plates. It was hard to tell without touching.
Ah, I see you are prepared with visors. My name is Lieutenant Rasmus, and for those of you who have not met my species, I am a Naxun. Let me guide you to our meeting room.
He turned and began leading them towards the bridge and to a side room much like had been used prior to the meteor getting attacked. Inside the room, the other 2 leaders of God's Eye were already seated. The Quix spoke first.
I'm Commander Juan Rawis. I understand that my chief medical officer wishes to meet with you. We'll get you set up so that you can make arrangements to have a meeting.
It was the second of the leaders that surprised Mira the most. The Trebulkians stood the tallest in the room at 8 feet and looked how every human would have described a walking tree. The little facts she had heard about them made a lot more sense now, such as them breathing carbon dioxide. Mira had thought it was interesting that their oxygen and carbon dioxide home world levels were opposite of Earth. The hair or treetop was a little different than your typical oak or maple. The hair looked a bit more like ivy vines, and the skin or bark was more gray-like than the brown that everyone always colored their tree trunks. Their feet were even vaguely root-shaped, but all roots going in the same direction instead of in a full radius around them.
My name is Captain Kluben, and you have already met Lieutenant Rasmus.
The rest of the leaders introduced themselves. The Juten leader was Lieutenant Tamrik, and the Trick leader was Commander Jine. There wasn't much to decide. Mira would continue on the meteor, and the leaders of the meteor would be the ones to go down to Earth with Mira. Black Hole and God's Eye would take flanking positions. They figured out a new route to take and went over potential threats that would be on that route. They all made sure they had the contact links to each other so that they could communicate with each other more easily. Mira also shared that she had asked Zanatla to gather a group to figure out a way to make contact with Commander Morris. After the meeting, Juanrawis guided Mira to CMO Drixa's office in the medbay, while everyone else headed back to their ships. The click of the Quix's feet on the floor was a little unnerving, and the heat that came off of the commander's atmospheric bubble was uncomfortable. As they walked, the Quix widened the distance between them and began to walk softer. Unconsciously, Mira moved back closer to the Quix and also began to walk softer. Juanrawis mentally chuckled and went back to walking normally, and Mira followed suit. Once inside the CMO's office, Juanrawis verified that only the three of them were in the office, so told Mira to go ahead and remove the visor and close her eyes. Mira felt lights turn on and then slowly opened her eyes, surprised that the ship had any lights. Both Quix chuckled. Mira gave them both a curious look.
We must apologize. We haven't ever encountered another species that reacts like you do with us.
Juanrawis explained.
Your mind projects and we are able to hear them without trying. So, when the commander realized our sphere's heat was uncomfortable to you, he moved away. You thought he was moving in order to be on the correct side of the corridor, so followed his movement. He walked softer because the sound was unnerving to you, but you thought he was being quiet for someone else, so also followed suit. Other species would not typically pick up on the changes.
Drixa added.
I'm going to step out and Drixa is going to see how strong your mental ears and voice are. I'm going to turn off the light before stepping out, and then Drixa will turn it back on when I leave. When we know we don't have a Naxun in a room, we can turn lights on, and a light that only visible to Naxuns turns on outside of the room that does not harm them. In fact, the Trabukians and Quix have lights on in our personal quarters all the time. I know you were wondering how we can handle staying in the dark all the time. We aren't. We just take extra care with our Naxun counterparts.
He turned off the light and stepped out of the room. When the door closed, Drixa turned the light back on. For the next hour, they practiced sending and receiving thoughts. While a Quix can hear distinctive mind voices, humans just suddenly have the words pop into their mind. They are unable to receive passive words, but frequently pick up on emotions. This means that if someone is angry in the room, a human picks up on the unease the strong emotion creates. However, if someone were sad, they pick up on that too and react with empathy. Not all of the emotions are noticed, and some take longer to figure out than others. Humans, on the other hand, don't have any ability to hide their thoughts. Mira asked about the underthoughts, like the ones that pop up but aren't meant. She had to give examples, and Drixa understood.
Those aren't coming through. I hear you think of my legs as spider legs, for example, and that you find the tips kind of cute, but that is all. It's like your mind's voice gives the words colors. Cute comes across as pink, but disgust comes across as a sickly green. If you have other thoughts about my legs, they are not coming through.
I was remembering how it felt when I held a tarantula and it walked across my hand, and if your feet would feel similar. That was the underthought. They can be embarrassing because I don't actually want to feel your feet, and that may come across as a really weird thought for you and can be misconstrued.
Drixa laughed.
Yes, that would be very uncomfortable. Would you like to touch my feet?
She joked. Mira laughed while shaking her head in the negative.
So, why do the Lakshi affect me the way they do?
We have been participating together in a way that is not harmful or malicious. When they sensed your ability to hear them, they used it as an additional attack. However, I can tell from how strong and weak your ability is that it would probably bring out your fight or flight response. For you, it was to blindly fight.
What about dreaming? What does that have to do with psionic ability?
Nothing. It's our ability to remember our dreams. I have watched over many species as they slept, and I can hear when they dream. They are oddly still when they sleep, But I also noticed that their dreams stop for a long time before they wake, which is probably why they don't remember them. They also do not have nightmares, so they do not startle awake either. Just like you, I'm sure, most of their dreams are rather boring. Perhaps getting annoyed at work, or doing exercise, or something as equally normal. But it is also true that they do not have subconscious thoughts or a part of their brains that will work on a problem while they go about their day. This causes a lack in their creativity. They can be very creative, but because they have to actively think about being creative, it can stunt them.
After a while, Drixa asked,
Did you want to explore the space station while you're here? I can show you around. There is not much to see, but it would all be new for you.
I have a meeting with Zanatla on Black Hole. I let her know I would head there after meeting with you.
I'll walk you over. Navigating ships you are not used to is confusing enough, while not doing so in the dark.
She made sure Mira had her visor ready before turning off the light. Drixa guided Mira to the exterior set of doors. Once the first set closed, if you were a Naxun, you would be putting on a visor to keep out light, and the rest would be taking their visors off. They both took their visors off, and Drixa opened the last door to the outside. Mira sent a message to Zanatla to let her know they were on their way, and she met them at the entry door to Black Hole.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button at the bottom of the video. Your generosity goes a long way. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.